The ceiling fan hummed softly above him, but Michael Turner couldn't sleep. The North Carolina night pressed heavy against the bedroom window, humid air clinging to his skin like a second layer. Raleigh summers always felt this way, warm, thick, almost suffocating, but tonight something else kept him awake. Beside him, his wife Emily lay perfectly still, her back turned toward him. Normally she would curl into him, tossing one leg across his, murmuring in half-sleep. Tonight, she was a statue. Too still. Too deliberate. Michael stared at the faint glow of her phone screen reflected in the dresser mirror earlier that evening, when she thought he hadn't noticed. A quick flick of her wrist, a muted smile that didn't belong to him, and then, click, the screen face down. It wasn't the first time. He turned over, watching her shoulders rise and fall. Maybe it was nothing. Maybe it was stress. Emily had been distant for weeks, leaving early for yoga, and coming home later than usual from her job at the marketing firm downtown. He tried to believe her, he really did, but doubt had a way of worming into his mind and multiplying at night. The clock on the nightstand blinked 2:17 a.m. in bold red digits. Sleep wouldn't come. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the blinds, casting golden stripes across their modest suburban bedroom. Their neighborhood in North Raleigh was the kind filled with identical houses, manicured lawns, and kids riding bikes on cul-de-sacs. The American dream packaged neatly behind white fences. Michael brewed coffee in the kitchen, the rich smell filling the air. He listened to the drip, drip, drip as Emily padded down the stairs, her hair still damp from the shower. She wore her work blouse, blue silk tucked into a pencil skirt, and carried her phone as if it were an extension of her hand. "Morning," she said, her voice cheerful but clipped. "Morning," Michael replied, studying her face. She smiled, but her eyes didn't. "Big day?" he asked, handing her a mug. She nodded, sipping quickly. "Yeah, meetings stacked one after another. Might be late again tonight." Michael's chest tightened, though he forced a nod. "Of course. Don't push yourself too hard." Emily leaned over, gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, and was out the door before the toast popped. The silence she left behind felt louder than anything. Michael sat at the kitchen table, staring at the crumbs on the counter, and wondered when his marriage had started to feel like a lie. That evening, he decided to test her story. Emily had said she was going to yoga after work. Michael left his office in downtown Raleigh early, drove across Glenwood Avenue traffic, and pulled into the parking lot of the yoga studio she claimed to attend. He waited. Cars came and went. Women in athletic wear walked in with mats under their arms. An hour passed. Emily never showed. Instead, Michael's phone buzzed with a text from her. "Running late at the office. Don't wait up for dinner, Red Heart." His grip on the steering wheel tightened. Something was wrong. Very wrong. And Michael Turner wasn't the kind of man to sit back and let shadows consume him. Michael didn't go straight home. Instead, he parked 2 blocks away from Emily's office building, a sleek glass tower downtown where her marketing firm occupied the 10th floor. It was nearly 7 in the evening, and the lobby lights glowed faintly. He sat in his car, the radio off, eyes fixed on the revolving doors. At 7:22, he saw her. Emily stepped out of the building, her hair falling loose around her shoulders, no briefcase, no signs of exhaustion after a supposed 12-hour day. She wasn't alone. A man walked beside her, tall, sharply dressed, carrying himself with an ease Michael instantly recognized. Confidence, bordering on arrogance. They laughed at something, too close, their body language almost magnetic. Michael's stomach knotted. He gripped the steering wheel hard enough for his knuckles to blanch. He couldn't hear what they said, but he didn't need to. He saw the way Emily tilted her head toward the man, the way she touched her hair, the way her hand brushed his arm like it belonged there. They crossed the street together, vanishing into the crowd of Friday night diners heading toward Fayetteville Street's bars and restaurants. Michael stayed frozen in his seat. His mind raced. Confront her now. Follow them. Pretend nothing happened until he had more proof. The last option won. That night, when Emily finally came home, nearly 10 o'clock, she smelled faintly of wine, though she claimed she had been buried in paperwork. Michael watched her peel off her blouse, hang it neatly, and crawl into bed with barely a glance his way. Long day, she murmured. Yeah, Michael whispered. His heart pounded, but he forced a smile. Get some rest. She turned off the lamp. Darkness swallowed the room. Michael lay awake, staring at the ceiling, every nerve in his body electric with suspicion. The following days were torture. Michael became a detective in his own home. He noticed things he'd ignored before. The way Emily always kept her phone face down. The sudden change in her perfume, something floral, not the scent he bought her last Christmas. The hidden smile when she read a text. He started checking her car mileage, mentally calculating her routes. He peeked at her planner, but she had grown careful. Too careful. By the next weekend, Michael's patience snapped. On Saturday, Emily announced she was going to brunch with a friend. Kelly? Michael asked casually, pouring orange juice. Yeah, Kelly, Emily said without blinking. Funny. Kelly had moved to Charlotte 6 months ago. Michael kissed her on the cheek as she left, then waited exactly 15 minutes before following her car. She drove downtown, parked near a boutique hotel, and walked briskly inside, alone. Michael's pulse thundered as he sat across the street, staring at the revolving glass doors. Minutes stretched into hours. Finally, at 3 p.m., she emerged. Not alone this time. The same man from before walked beside her. His hand brushed her lower back in a way that was anything but professional. Michael's throat went dry. There it was. Proof. His marriage, the life he'd built, the woman he loved, wasn't what it seemed. That night, Emily came home humming softly, carrying a small shopping bag with a new blouse inside. She kissed Michael's cheek, made dinner, asked about his day like nothing was wrong. Michael smiled, answered, laughed at her stories. But inside, a storm was building. Michael had always been the steady one. The husband who paid bills on time, kept the lawn trimmed, and remembered to take the trash out every Wednesday morning. Stability was his nature. But now, he found himself sneaking, watching, calculating, living a double life inside his own marriage. On Monday morning, while Emily was in the shower, he acted. Her phone lay on the nightstand, face down, just as always. Michael's pulse quickened as he picked it up. He knew the passcode, her birthday, but when he typed it in, the screen buzzed and rejected him. She'd changed it. Michael's stomach dropped. That was all the proof he needed. By the time Emily stepped out of the bathroom wrapped in a towel, he was sitting calmly on the bed, pretending to scroll through sports news on his own phone. You heading in early? He asked lightly. Yeah, she said, toweling her hair. Big presentation. He smiled. You'll crush it. She smiled back, but it never reached her eyes. That evening, after she left her laptop open on the kitchen counter, Michael struck again. Emily was in the shower, again, and her email account glowed on the screen. At first, he saw nothing unusual, client updates, meeting notes, reminders. But then he noticed a folder buried deep inside her inbox. Personal. He clicked. His breath caught. Dozens of messages. Some innocuous, some flirtatious, some unmistakably intimate. Can't stop thinking about last night. When can I see you again? The way you looked at me at the bar drove me crazy. Next weekend. Hotels already booked. Same place. Michael's chest constricted, his hands trembling as he scrolled. There were no names, only initials, DM. But that was enough. He couldn't confront her yet. He needed to know who this man was, what hold he had over Emily, how deep the betrayal went. So Michael began to shadow his own wife. On Wednesday evening, when Emily claimed she had a late meeting, Michael followed her car again. He kept his headlights 2 cars back, heart hammering, palms slick against the steering wheel. She drove not to the office, but to a dimly lit bar near Hillsborough Street, a place popular with professionals looking for discreet after-work drinks. Michael parked half a block away and watched through the windshield. Emily walked in, and minutes later, so did he. The man. Michael finally got a good look at him. Mid-30s, sharp suit, a clean-shaven face that seemed permanently etched with self-assurance. He leaned close to Emily at the bar, touched her hand, whispered something that made her laugh. Michael felt rage burn hot inside his chest, but he forced himself to stay put. If he charged in now, it would all be chaos, denials, lies, excuses. No. He would be smarter. He reached for his phone and snapped a photo. Click. The grainy image of Emily and the stranger glowing against the bar's neon lights appeared on his screen. Proof. And yet, looking at the photo, Michael felt something break inside him. This wasn't suspicion anymore. This wasn't paranoia. This was betrayal. That night, lying beside Emily as she slept soundly, Michael stared into the dark. Divorce? Revenge? Exposure? The questions circled endlessly, each one darker than the last. He had proof. He had motive. But what he didn't have, yet, was a plan. The next morning, Raleigh's downtown skyline gleamed under the September sun, but for Michael, the city had lost its warmth. Every building, every passing car felt like part of a stage on which his life was unraveling. At his desk in the insurance office, he couldn't focus. The numbers on his screen blurred into meaningless rows. All he could see was the man in the bar, leaning close to Emily, touching her like he owned her. Michael needed a name. That evening, while Emily showered, he went back to her email. He combed through messages in the personal folder, searching for any clue. Then he found it. A forwarded reservation confirmation from the boutique hotel downtown. The sender's full name was displayed at the top. Daniel Mercer. Michael whispered it aloud, the syllables heavy on his tongue. He Googled it immediately. Within minutes, a profile appeared, LinkedIn, Facebook, company bio. Daniel Mercer, 36, a senior financial consultant at a respected firm in Raleigh. Married once, divorced 2 years ago. Smooth resume, polished smile, the type of man who thrived on attention. Michael stared at Daniel's photo, bile rising in his throat. This was the man dismantling his marriage piece by piece. Over the next week, Michael became an invisible shadow in Daniel's world. He followed him after work, noting the bars he frequented, the gym where he lifted weights with an arrogant ease, even the upscale grocery store where he picked out imported wines. It sickened Michael how ordinary he seemed. Successful. Charismatic. Blending seamlessly into Raleigh's professional scene, like he belonged everywhere. And Emily had fallen for it. The breaking point came on a Thursday night. Emily claimed she was going to yoga again. Michael followed, but this time not from afar. He parked across from the boutique hotel downtown, his heart pounding like a war drum. At 7:45, Emily's car appeared. She walked quickly inside, wearing a dress Michael had bought her last Christmas, the one she'd said was too formal for work. Michael's throat burned. That dress had been for him. At 8:02, Daniel arrived. Calm. Confident. He adjusted his tie, strolled through the revolving doors, and vanished into the lobby. Michael sat in his car, gripping the steering wheel until his hands hurt. The urge to storm in, to rip the facade apart, nearly consumed him. Instead, he pulled out his phone, snapped another photo, and saved it to a folder now thick with evidence. Proof stacked on proof. But tonight, something shifted inside him. It wasn't enough to know. It wasn't enough to watch. He wanted them to feel what he felt: panic, shame, fear. Back home, Emily slipped into bed after midnight, smelling faintly of perfume and wine. "You're awake?" she whispered. Michael's eyes stayed on the ceiling. "Yeah. Couldn't sleep." She kissed his cheek, soft and sweet, as if nothing were wrong. Michael didn't move. His mind was already elsewhere, building the next step. Michael had always believed himself to be a rational man. In his 38 years, he'd never once been reckless. But infidelity had a way of burning rationality to ash. By Friday, the decision was made. He wasn't going to wait for Emily to slip up. He was going to force the truth into the open. That afternoon, Michael left work early and drove downtown. His target wasn't Emily this time, it was Daniel. Daniel's office building sat on Fayetteville Street, glass and steel catching the late daylight. Michael waited in a cafe across the street, nursing a black coffee he didn't taste. At 5:37, Daniel appeared, carrying a leather briefcase, talking into his phone with a laugh that cut through Michael's chest like a blade. Michael followed. He kept a steady distance as Daniel walked toward the parking garage, slipping into a sleek silver BMW. Michael memorized the plates instantly. DXY 4521. Proof, another piece of the puzzle. The next step came almost too easily. That evening, while Emily was upstairs changing, Michael called a friend from college, a cop in Wake County. They hadn't spoken in months, but favors had a way of resurfacing. "Hey, Tom. Need a quick lookup. License plate. Discreet." Within an hour, the name and address appeared on Michael's phone. Daniel Mercer lived in a high-rise condo near Glenwood South, exactly the type of place Emily once claimed was too flashy for real life. Michael stared at the message for a long time, then deleted it. On Saturday, Emily claimed she was meeting her sister for lunch. Michael didn't challenge her. He simply smiled, kissed her cheek, and let her leave. Then he drove straight to Glenwood South. Daniel's condo building rose like a gleaming tower, complete with valet service and glass balconies. Michael parked across the street, waited, and watched. At 1:13 p.m., Emily arrived. Not in her car this time, an Uber. She stepped out, adjusting her dress, glancing around nervously. Then she slipped inside the building. Michael's chest tightened. Every instinct screamed to storm in, drag her out, end this nightmare in front of everyone. But he didn't. Instead, he picked up his phone, opened the camera, and began to record. By the time Emily returned home that evening, smiling faintly as she set down her purse, Michael had a folder on his phone full of evidence. Photos of Emily with Daniel at the bar. Screenshots of the hotel confirmations. A video of her walking into Daniel's condo building. The truth was no longer hidden. It was caged. And Michael held the key. That night, as Emily slept, Michael sat at the kitchen table in the dark, scrolling through the folder again and again. Each image was a knife, cutting deeper, but also sharpening his resolve. It wasn't about doubt anymore. It wasn't even about pain. It was about control. He wasn't going to let her dictate how this ended. He was going to decide. Sunday dawned gray and heavy, the kind of sky that seemed to warn of storms. Michael didn't go to church. He didn't jog through the park like he usually did. Instead, he sat at the kitchen table with a mug of cold coffee, staring at his phone, scrolling again and again through the folder of betrayal. Every image. Every message. Every detail. Today would be the day. Emily came downstairs at noon, dressed casually, humming as if nothing in their life had shifted. She poured herself coffee, kissed Michael's cheek, and started talking about brunch. Michael's voice was calm, almost too calm. "Emily," he said, setting his phone on the table, the screen facing up. "We need to talk. She froze. The smile faltered. About what? He tapped the screen. The video began to play, her walking into Daniel Mercer's condo building. Emily's face drained of color. Michael, I can explain. He cut her off, sliding through photo after photo, her laughing at the bar with Daniel, her brushing his arm, the hotel reservations, the messages. Every lie laid bare. Her hands trembled. It's not what it looks like. Don't insult me, Michael said quietly. His voice was steady, but his eyes burned. You've been lying for months. Sneaking out. Telling me stories about yoga, about Kelly. You thought I wouldn't notice. You thought I wouldn't see you for what you are. Tears filled her eyes, but Michael felt nothing. Not sympathy. Not pity. Only clarity. That evening, Emily begged him to talk. To forgive. To work through it. Michael listened in silence. Then he stood, walked to the bedroom, and pulled a folder from under the bed. Inside were printed copies of everything. Emails. Photos. Screenshots. He dropped it onto the table in front of her. I'm filing tomorrow, he said. Her lip quivered. Divorce? Yes, Michael said coldly. You chose him. So now you can have him. Emily sobbed, reaching for his arm, but he pulled away. For the first time in months, he felt in control. But Michael wasn't done. 2 days later, Daniel Mercer arrived at his office to find a thick envelope waiting on his desk. Inside. Photos of him with Emily. Copies of their intimate emails. A short, typed note, your boss deserves to know what kind of man he employs. Michael didn't need to sign it. He knew Daniel's firm had strict policies about professional conduct, especially scandals that could tarnish their reputation. By Friday, Daniel's LinkedIn account showed a sudden, career break. The last step was simple. Michael filed for divorce. Swift, undeniable, backed with evidence that left Emily no room to contest. When the papers were served, she wept, begged, clung to him. But Michael's heart was stone. You burned this down yourself, he said. Now live in the ashes. Epilogue. 3 months later, Michael sat in the same cafe across from Daniel's old office. Raleigh streets bustled outside, life carrying on as if nothing had happened. He sipped his coffee slowly, feeling something he hadn't felt in months, peace. Emily was gone. Daniel was ruined. And Michael? He was free.